Hey guys, guess what? Finally, TL has come back to podcast land. I am TL. Welcome back to TL Talks Podcast. This is episode number 39. After taking a 1 year hiatus, we are back. I'm not going to say better than ever because I have high standards. But as you can see, this is a different version. The beta version of my podcast was completely audio, which has its perks. But shout out to my friend Fabian. He gave me a recommendation. I think it was when I was doing a live Facebook live, like it was like an NFL draft where all my friends that were fans of that team were picking for that team in a mock draft before the actual draft happened. And so I did a Facebook Live, and I was obviously the Roger Goodell of the situation. And my buddy Fabian mentioned that it was a blast. He had a good time. It was very entertaining. I did a great job. And he made the point that being able to see me and see my facial expressions and stuff like that just makes it better for viewers. And so here we are. So it's good and bad, right? It's good because you can't see me. I do think this is a better version of my podcast. The bad is that with putting stuff on YouTube, you know, you're taking some risks with feedback, and I don't really live in fear, so it should be fine. So, anyways, I'm going to tell you first how my podcast usually will be, and then how my podcast is going to be today, because it's the first one after the year hiatus. So today is going to be different for that purpose because I decided instead of having a guest like I usually do, it makes more sense just to talk to you and get get used to seeing this mug and kind of just giving you an update on my life, basically. And I miss talking to you guys. Hopefully you miss hearing from me. Just giving you an update on my life, how the last year's looked without the podcast. And then yeah, so that's today. That's the first episode back. After this, other episodes will have a pretty strict format. It'll loosely be like, well, it's a strict format that I'm not completely decided on, so I guess it's not strict. But yeah, it's going to start off with the thought of the day, followed by football talk, which usually takes 10 to 15 minutes. Then the rest of the podcast is the guest. So I'll be interviewing somebody that hopefully interests you, and that will still be audio, so you won't be able to listen to it. But the difference is it'll be a video, so we'll either have that person's face on the screen or maybe a slideshow of different pictures of them. We're figuring that out now. So shout out to Dom Watts. She is helping me with this YouTube version of my podcast. She's going to be kind of my editor to figure stuff out. So shout out to her, and shout out to Fabian for giving me the idea. Hopefully you guys like this different version. But yeah, so today's, like I said, we're going to start with thought of the day, still do football, but then instead of a guest, it'll just be me talking and catching up on my life. So without further ado, my thought of the day, the first thought of the day after the hiatus is this. Something that I've learned recently. So, well, here's what it is. It's that what you think and say is way more powerful than you could ever imagine. Let me explain. So what you think, right? You could think in your mind, I suck at math. Um, I whatever, like any negative thoughts you have in your mind about yourself. The irony is, even though you don't want those things to be true about yourself, you thinking those things makes it true. So you like literally like manifest it into existence. So that's the first part, what you think. And then what you say is as powerful, if not more powerful. So what you say out loud, whether you're saying negative things about yourself or you're talking, I'm trying to give you an example. Like, let's say you are paranoid that you're going to oversleep. then you oversleep. You are afraid of this happening, and then that happens. Or like, let's just like, it's hard to put into words, but just take my word for it that what you think and what you say has more power than you could ever imagine. So I know for a fact that you have had times where you thought about somebody and then saw them, right? Or you know how like you'll just have things come to mind and then I don't know. For me, it's happened a lot, but I just never put the pieces together. I just thought it was kind of coincidence, but it turns out it's not. It's not coincidence. It's kind of like the Matrix a little bit. Not to go too like you know off the rails, but just there's a lot of power to it. And so I know that most of us live a life where we're kind of on cruise control and we just think and say whatever we think and say. I would urge you to take more control than that. I would urge you to take ownership of your thoughts and words. Try to be as positive as you can about people around you and yourself because that has a ripple effect on your whole life. So not only the way your life's going to play out for that day and in the future, but also how your relationships are going to be with people around you. I mean, it's pretty impactful. So that's my thought of the day. Hopefully you enjoyed that, got something from it. Moving on. Normally I would move on to football right now. I'm kind of going to do the whole year, last year of my life. I guess football would be a good place to start because it's such a big part of my life. Um, yeah, let's do that. So we'll start with football. I'll tell you about the Bandits, well, a little bit of Ohio State, and then mostly the Browns. The Browns. So, so first the Bandits. So if you know me, you know that I'm affiliated with a women's tackle football team called the Denver Bandits. They just finished their season a few months ago. They went. The record was 4-2 this season. I think it was 2-4 the first season, the season before COVID, and so obviously a better record. So that's awesome to see. That team has so much potential as far as just the core of players that we have, how good those players are, and then you know what those players lacked was experience. So this season was experience. Unfortunately, last season didn't happen because of COVID. Nobody's fault, but they got this season under their belt, and so I'm looking forward to see how they can progress for next season. That's the Denver Bandits. Moving on briefly to Ohio State. Ohio State, as most of you know, we made it to the Final Four. We beat Clemson, which felt great. And then we lost pretty decisively to Alabama in the national championship. So it's kind of like bittersweet, right? Like it felt really good to beat Clemson because Clemson's kind of on their high horse last few years. And Debo, or is his name Debo, the Clemson coach? It doesn't matter. He said something. He wasn't really talking shit. He just said something to the effect of Ohio State shouldn't be in the playoffs because they didn't play enough games or something. And so he kind of had that coming to him. So it was great to beat Clemson because they're a top team, but then also to get beat the way we got beat against Alabama in the championship was hard to watch. And so, it's a first world problem, right? Like I'm an Ohio State fan. They're a top team every year. Um, and so once again, they were a top team. It's just when you lose in the championship in the manner that we did, it just lets you know that you weren't really close, right? You weren't even in Alabama's league for that year. So moving on to this year, Ohio State they had played one game already. They had a rough first game against Minnesota. Granted, it was in Minnesota. We have a lot of young, new starters, which there's going to be some growing pains. But that game against Minnesota was kind of shaky in the beginning. And so I'm hoping that as a fan of Ohio State, what I'm hoping is that they just keep on winning and those young guys keep on getting more experience and they hit their stride by the time the season ends or the Big Ten championship so that they have a chance in the playoffs, right, to play grown man football. So that's kind of my hope. Moving on to the most important football team, no offense to Ohio State and the Bandits, the Cleveland MF and Browns. So I guess there's it's two-sided. So there's last year, the year that we basically missed because my podcast didn't exist. And then obviously this year that's about to start. The reason I wanted to launch my podcast this week is because the season is about, like, I live in like the Denver area. I'm driving my Italian ass to Kansas City to watch the Browns play the Chiefs on Sunday. So that's awesome. How often you get to watch the Browns versus the Chiefs? Pretty much never. And so the ticket was expensive, but I don't really care about money. So I'm going to be at that game. Let's review the Browns season last season. So last season the Browns went 11-5. They made the playoffs. More importantly, got a playoff win. More importantly, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. More importantly, whooped that ass. And lastly, more importantly, it was in Pittsburgh. So, as a Browns fan, I mean, one of the hardest things about taking a year off my podcast was not being able to talk to you guys about the emotions as a Browns fan of watching my team be a good team, coached well, with the GM making smart decisions, and then us playing good football, playoff worthy football, winning a playoff game against that team, and then going to Kansas City and giving them pretty much all they could handle. So the only caveat I would say with that is Patrick Mahomes got hurt in that game, unfortunately, in the playoffs. And so you can make the argument that if he didn't get hurt, it wouldn't have been a 5-point game at the end. But as you know, reality is reality. He did get hurt, and they barely beat us. And so that game's really tough to swallow. There was a controversial play where Rashard Higgins had the ball near the goal line. Their safety Sorensen came nosediving, helmet first into him. It was an obvious helmet to helmet hit. He jarred the ball loose. They called it a touchback. So literally, like, the fact that they didn't call it helmet to helmet and they said it was a touchback instead of a touchdown or even out of bounds, ball on the one, that literally is the game, right? We lost by 5. That's 6 points right there. So really hard to swallow. Still a very encouraging season, right? Like, I'm a Browns fan, so we've been so bad for so long. I'm definitely not complaining about 11-5 and a playoff win over the Steelers. But I would say, before I talk about this season, I guess it's kind of hard to shorten the whole season into a couple minutes. But that whole season was awesome to watch. I mean, Baker Mayfield played well. Nick Chubb was a monster. Kareem Hunt did his thing. Unfortunately, Odell Beckham got hurt, but it was, I wouldn't say a blessing in disguise because you don't want to call somebody's injury a blessing, but I would say that it obviously changed the dynamic of our offense, and it was very obvious that Baker was perhaps forcing the ball to Beckham somewhat, and Beckham getting hurt didn't force him, but allowed Baker to spread the ball out, not force it to anybody, and made our offense a lot more fluid and effective. So kudos to Baker for losing his best receiver and still having a stellar year. Kudos to Beckham for working his tail off. He's on pace to be ready for week 1 after an ACL injury, which is really tough. But yeah, I mean, just the whole season was phenomenal. Our defense was the weakness. We had a safety named Sendejo that was just hard to watch, man. I mean, God bless his heart. I know the dude's trying. He flies around the ball. He comes uphill fast to make tackles. It's not for lack of effort, but the guy is just god awful in coverage, like complete liability. And everybody knows that. And so we just saw teams expose him game after game. And so our defense was definitely the weakness of the team. And so luckily for us now, we have not only a competent head coach, but a competent GM who is making moves in the offseason, whether it's trades or free agents or draft picks, that make so much sense for our team. He just is a really fucking bright guy. Shout out to Andrew Berry. Um, so I can't wait, like to bring you to current Browns. We're gonna play our first game in a few days. You guys are gonna see this on Friday, so 2 days from then. Um, I can't wait. I'm not gonna say we're gonna beat the Chiefs. The game's gonna be tough. They're a really good team, and it's in Kansas City. But our team is stacked. I know it's on paper, but it's just like I already know they're good. They're well coached. I've already watched it last year, so coaching's not a weakness. Is cohesion a weakness? I don't think so. We had some turnover, but when you look at the pieces that we have on offense and defense now, defense doesn't look like a weakness now. Like people are drafting the Browns defense in fantasy. That was never the case in the past, including last year. So that says a lot about where our current team is at. And anybody who has a brain pretty much says the AFC is going to come down to a handful of teams, with the Browns being one of those teams. So I cannot wait. like like to say that I'm eager for the Browns season to start is a gross understatement. So can't wait. I'm going to be at the game on Sunday. It's going to be a brutal drive. I need to leave like between 2 and 4 a.m. So that's going to be brutal, but it's all worth it. It's for the Browns. But yeah, to finish up the Browns stuff before we move on, for this season, kind of just what I'm projecting. I was thinking about this because we have 17 games now. We have one extra game this season. I'm going to say that the Browns finish with 11 or 12 wins. We had 11 last year, but we have one more game this year. The difference between this year and last year, besides obvious stuff like turnover and you know acquisitions, is there's not only one game, but also we have a harder schedule. So since we have a harder schedule, I am going to say that that's why we don't win 13 or more games. But we're we're a better team than we were last year, at least on paper. And so it's not unrealistic at all that we could still win 11 games with an extra game, if not 12. And so I guess the realist in me is not getting carried away because I've seen other Browns fans say 13-4, but I think that's a little bit optimistic. 17 games is a long ass season. 16 was long. Now it's even longer. And so a lot of things can happen, right? You can have injuries. You can have a day, like a bad day or away game that the refs screw you. Who knows, right? And so just the mixture of us playing some good teams and then some teams or some games just being unlucky, I think that 11 or 12 wins is realistic. So that's my projection for this season. So that's enough football talk, I think. We can move on to life stuff. So hopefully this doesn't bore you. Like I said, this is the part of the podcast where I would be starting the interview with somebody, where I'll be playing it for you. And then, like I said, Dom is going to put up either a picture of them or a slideshow, perhaps. We'll figure that out. And so, yeah, last year of my life. Where do I begin? Um, when I stopped recording my podcast, it's kind of like right in the thick of COVID. So let's talk COVID first. Um, oh man, should I even get into this? How transparent should I be about COVID? Um, hmm. Well, I have opinions, like everybody does. Opinions are like assholes. Um, so here's what I would say. I thought that Donald Trump was probably going to be the most controversial thing that I ever um, dealt with in my adult life, right? And the little did I know, there's a pandemic called COVID that was going to trump Trump. And so it's kind of hard to summarize, but as you guys know, it's a pandemic. A lot of people have lost their lives over it. It's nothing to joke about or not take seriously. Um, I didn't realize, obviously, I mean, I've never lived through a pandemic, right? So I didn't see it coming. But I didn't realize that something could even be that controversial. Um, Not only have I never dealt with a pandemic before, but also like how much the pandemic kind of like separated people, which that's the last thing the US needed, in my opinion. It was just crazy to me. So, like, just the concept of that there is a pandemic, how to react to it, how to live your life, people wearing masks. There's people, I mean, people that have very strong opinions about wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, getting a vaccine, not getting a vaccine. And the people that have these opinions are on the same side of the fence. Like, I've literally seen people that work in the medical field have opinions on different sides of like to get vaccinated or not. I've seen people on both sides that are both teachers or they're both scientists or they're both doctors or whatever. So it's like there's no usually, like, in politics, it's red versus blue, so you can kind of predict on how these people are going to react to certain things or what their viewpoints are going to be. But in this case, and this is the first time in my life that I can think of this, there was no like predictability. It was just all over the place with different opinions, most of them strong opinions, but nobody really knew. And I still feel like, and I know you're probably going to judge me for saying this, I still feel like nobody does know about. I mean, what we know about COVID is that some people have lost their lives because of getting COVID and complications related to that. That's a fact. What's not a fact is how effective wearing a mask is. What is a fact is that wearing a mask will make people around you feel more comfortable. And for that reason, I wore a mask. So you have you don't know how effective masks are, but people will scorn you and judge you if you don't wear one. So I guess the thing that doesn't sit well with me is a lot of the things related to COVID seem like our freedoms are being taken away from us, in my opinion. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I know that this is, we live in America. We're very lucky. There's people that have it way worse off than we do. And for us just to wear a mask to make somebody else feel safe or comfortable is not a big ask. I get it. I get it. But, sorry, there is a but. Here's the thing. If I was a conspiracy theorist, which I'm not, I would say that the whole COVID situation and how it was handled, how it's still being handled, points to somebody trying to control us or somebody kind of in like a social experiment, just seeing how much they can control us. And so I don't know, man. Like, I feel like they hurried up and made the vaccine because there was money to be made. So they made like three versions of the vaccine. They recalled one of them, Johnson and Johnson. So you hurried up to make a vaccine because you can make money off of it. But for me, in my brain, I'm thinking like, so I'm going to take a vaccine that you hurried up and made because you want to make money when I don't know the long term effects of it. or even that it would prevent me from getting COVID or spreading COVID. Well, not to toot my own horn, but several people have said that they are fully vaccinated. And guess what? They got COVID either again or for the first time. And I'm pretty sure that they could spread COVID too. So feel free to contact me if you think I'm spreading misinformation. I only speak about what I've heard and I try not to talk out of turn. But the whole thing is just hard to wrap my mind around. I just look at it like the pandemic sucks. I don't want anybody to die, including myself. Um, but I feel like the pandemic brought out the worst in a lot of us as Americans. And I was disappointed. I was disappointed in how it reacted, and I was disappointed when I see people that are fear driven. When you're driven by fear, that's a very strong emotion, and it can make you do some silly stuff. And so, I'm not trying to judge anybody. All I can do is just control myself, right? My own actions. But yeah, I mean, I guess the verdict's still out. I know a lot of people that have gotten vaccinated, including my mom. Um, I'm basically just hoping for the best. I don't think I don't think I would get vaccinated unless I didn't have a choice. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if I'm hearing about people that are fully vaccinated still getting COVID afterwards and being able to spread that to other people, I beg to ask you the question: what in the hell is the purpose of a vaccine if that's the case? So I don't. I feel like I'm missing some kind of huge information, like what I just said. So feel free. You can tear. I don't care if you want to criticize me or call me ignorant or anti-vax. I don't care about name calling. But what I do care about is learning. And so if there's missing information that I don't have, I would love for you to reach out to me. Or if you want to use the comments, I guess you can do that too. But yeah, I mean, I love learning, and if I'm misinformed, please school me. I have no ego when it comes. I'm not Dr. Fauci or whatever. So that's my 2 cents. COVID's still a thing. We're still dealing with it. Um, that's kind of how I've mentally processed all that, and it's just a mess. And so that's where we're at with that. What else has happened in the last year of my life? Well, I know hopefully some of you guys can relate to this. With COVID, what COVID meant was it was a lot of time being inactive. So for me, and I assume a lot of other people too, what COVID meant for me is a lot more staying at home, um, a lot more hanging out with my dog, and not being as active as I usually am physically, which isn't good for the waistline. So, folks, sorry to say, last year I remember stepping on a scale, wasn't good. Um, I think the heaviest I had ever been was like in the 220s somewhere, and I'm only 5'10", so 220s even kind of thick. But I stepped on the scale like a year ago and said I was like in the 250s, and I was like, oh Nelly. So here's the thing: I was in the 250s. I wasn't comfortable in my body, which was a first for me. And so, since I wasn't comfortable in my body and I was way heavier than what I wanted to be, I knew I had to do something different. Common sense, right? So luckily for me, my buddy was living with me at the time. His name's Dan, and he has a history of like coaching collegiate like cross country and track. And so I used him as a resource and said, "Hey, if you want to, write up some different running plans for me." I hate running, but I was kind of desperate just to get in better shape and lose weight. So I asked him to write up some plans, and so I started running pretty consistently. I got this little app where you can like your friends can check out what you're doing and stuff, which is pretty cool. But then that malfunctioned, so that was a bummer. So I ran temporarily, and then that stopped happening. And then we fast forward to right now. It's funny. The things we tell ourselves to procrastinate or put off certain things. So I literally was telling myself earlier this year that I want to lose weight, I want to be healthier, but while I'm studying for this real estate exam, because I'm switching careers, I'm going to do what I'm going to do just to get by, and then we'll deal with that later. Well, I passed the test. I successfully switched careers from my last job, and now I am a certified real estate agent in Colorado. Um, but yeah, now it's time for me to take care of myself. So I kind of procrastinated that for a while, but then I realized, listen, man, I'm 40 years old now, and you hear about, you know, I've heard about some guy who's 42 and he just passed away because he had a stroke or a heart attack or something. And I'm just like, geez, 42? So since I'm 40, I'm telling you right now, I'm not trying to check out anytime soon. I have a lot of stuff left to do. Um, I haven't even scraped the bottom, like the beginning of my potential, I don't think. And so I'm not even close to satisfied with my life. And the only way that I'm checking out like soon is if I have some kind of freak accident or I do have like a medical emergency like that. And so common sense tells you, how do you avoid a medical emergency? Well, you take care of yourself as well as you can. There's some stuff you can't prevent, like a brain aneurysm or something, but most things you can prevent, I think. And so just doing your due diligence, educating yourself about how you can be healthier. I think some people just lack knowledge. I know that I lack knowledge about how to cook. you know, I've been I've been a bachelor my whole life, and so I've never had the luxury of having a wife or somebody cooking for me, and so that's resulted in me eating out a lot and and just basically doing whatever I want as far as eating and drinking, and just not good. So eventually that catches up to you, especially when you get older in life. And so once I switched careers, I'm kind of getting ahead in the story, but once I switched careers, I was like, okay, well, now it's time to take care of yourself. You put it off long enough, and so no excuses. Let's get after it. So let me explain how I'm getting after it. Um, I guess I should explain the career change before I do that. So career change. So I worked at this job in Colorado for about 6 or 7 years. Good job. This is actually something I want to talk to you guys about. So that job was a good job. Paid pretty good by my standards. Phenomenal benefits, right? So what I told myself, remember what I said, what you think and what you say, it's powerful. Told myself in my head, it's a pretty good job. It's probably the best I can do without a degree. And so, because I said that and thought that, I stayed there for a long time. Well, as you guys know, a lot of life is about who you know. And fortunately for me, I have a friend named Gigi that I like, have dinner with her every few months to catch up. And she works in real estate, and she was telling me about her career and how she was doing, and she was like killing it in real estate, right? She did live in Colorado. She lives in Florida now. So she was killing in real estate, but she's kind of getting burnt out. and she got to the point where she had too much work for just her. And so her idea was to have a team that works for her, have them do the leads and stuff, and then she just kind of is support, right? And of course, she gets a cut of stuff, so she's still able to pay her bills and be financially good. So her plan was to have a team in Colorado, a team in Florida, a team in Texas. Well, she ends up telling me she's already hired her first female for a team. I told her how much she can make per month or expect to make on average. Well, the figure of what she said she can make per month was about 5 times what I was making at my current job. So the wheels started turning, and I asked her, I was like, so in theory, I could be one of the people on your team. She's like, yeah, you could. And I'm like, it took me about 5 minutes to like mull it over. And I'm like, tell am I waiting for? So yeah, I mean it's kind of weird because I'm talking about it. It happened a year ago. That conversation happened a year ago. Now here we are, and I am a real estate agent, and I am on our team, and life's crazy. So at the age of 40, I switched careers. I left that old job, put in my 2 weeks as soon as I could, passed my real estate exam. That was very difficult, by the way. Got my license. Now I'm working real estate. Literally today I did a showing in Pine, Colorado, kind of out in the boonies. So I love it. I think it's kind of skip to the point here. I love the freedom of it. I feel like I didn't start living my life until I did this, age 40, which better late than never. But yeah, I love everything about it. I love the potential of how much money you can make. I love the freedom of making your own hours. You kind of are working for yourself. I love that. I love that you can make or break yourself in this career. Um, and I kind of feel like who I am as a person very much meshes with the occupation, right? Because if you think about it, if you're working with a realtor, real estate agent to buy or sell a home or both, think about like what traits you would like them to be. Okay, same with me. Friendly, patient, knowledgeable, thorough, advocate. Have you met me? So, fortunately for me, those are all things that I am innately without even trying. And so I'm like, well, yeah, that could work out. And so it's pretty neat because not only do I think I'm going to be great at the career, but also you can make pretty good money doing it. For me, I'm not motivated by money. I look at money as just a vehicle to help people. So as long as my bills are paid and I'm able to like do a couple cool things per year, I was just telling Gigi, now that I'm switching like into this new career and huge life change, I think starting in next year, 2022, what I want my new norm to be is taking 2 trips per year. So one trip would be like to a different country, like Hawaii or I actually have a vision board, Costa Rica, etc. Somewhere beautiful outside of the U.S. Well, those are in the U.S., but you know what I'm saying, like outside of the continental U.S. Um, just to get away, you know what I mean, and be somewhere beautiful and kind of relax and not worry about anything. So I want to do that once per year. The other trip I want to do is like a humanitarian trip, and so whether it's going to a third world country or there's this organization called Water Boys with this guy in the NFL. It's pretty much what he's doing is what I wanted to do, but I never did it. As far as like helping people that don't have drinkable water over in third world countries. So even if it's just working with them and like going out for a week or two just to be a free worker, I think that would be really cool. Just to help out and actually be there and see people, you know what I mean, that are living not in America. I think that would be very grounding. And so I mean, I want that to be my new norm starting next year. 2 trips per year at least. One trip to somewhere nice, that one's about me. Other trip is somewhere to help people. That one's not about me at all. And so, yeah. So I'm 40 now. I feel like I just started my life at the age of 40. I'm very happy. I tell people this all the time. That real estate exam was literally the only stress in my life. So once I passed that exam, I have no stress. Like, I guess I forgot to tell you guys, but I also bought a new house. So I had that old career, and I was living in a house in a different city in Colorado, and that neighborhood kind of got progressively worse than from the way it was when I bought it. And so I just wanted something new, like a better neighborhood, probably a smaller house. Because when I bought my first house, it was a big house, and I was like, well, if I get married and have kids, I want to have space for whatever happens. Well, your boy never got married or had kids. So it's just me and Jackson, my dog. And so we don't really need a lot of space. Of course, you want to have a little bit of space. So if people visit, you can accommodate. But as far, I mean, that house was like 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. It just way too big. Um, so I did that. I found a place much more expensive, um, but you get what you pay for. So nicer neighborhood, newer house, smaller house, but still big enough. So me and Jackson couldn't be happier. So my life is awesome. I don't know, like I'm not trying to rub it in or anything, like, but I'm just being transparent. Like I am so grateful for what I have and my like how my life is right now, as far as where I live, my career, my mindset, me getting healthier, like all of it points north. You know what I'm saying? Like all of it's good. It's all full steam ahead. And so it's hard not to have regret about the past because these are things that I should have done earlier. But as you know, you can't change yesterday. So since you can't change yesterday, it's literally wasted energy to worry, like concern yourself with yesterday. So all I'm just trying to do is do the best for today and in the future. As it pertains, like on that same note, for the podcast, I'm going to update my update my website through Andrew, and then this is a new version, right, of you seeing me instead of just hearing me, which is fine. Um, Hopefully you don't mind it. But what I would like to aspire to is to be fancy pants because I watch podcasts all the time. So like for example, Chris D'Elia's podcast is like about an hour long. He talks about whatever. He's hilarious. It's a good time. Well, more importantly, his video quality, granted, like they definitely have like, you know, professional cameras set up, right? Like in front of them. So it makes sense that the quality is better. But my point is that the quality is so good that it's like crystal clear. Like you're watching it and it's like I know right now when you're watching mine, you can see it's like kind of pixelated, right? Um, but this is better than nothing. Yeah. So we're starting with this, but I'm going to talk with Dom because she has some equipment. I have some equipment that I bought for the summit, and I'm going to figure out how we can just do better. And so I'm working on finding out how to do a better video. So this is the best. Maybe not Crystalia's quality, but as close as we can get. I'm working on updating the website, so that's more current and updated. Um, and then also there's something else. What was it? I wrote it down. Oh, music. So as you guys know, I've been using my buddy Anthony Mossberg. He was a guest on the podcast. I've been using his music as intro music. I had music as like the in between music before guests, and then the outro music. Now that you're seeing my face, I feel like outro is not really needed anymore. But we could still use the other two. So I've been using Anthony's, and he's of course cool with that. It's just more exposure for his music. But I have a female friend that I went to college with, and her son does beats. He's like a young kid. I think he's like 12 or something. And so I want to talk with him to see if he can make me a beat for my podcast that I could throw him some cash, because I feel like that could be cool. It would be, he'd make it literally just for my podcast. So it'd be like, original. And, it's cool. Like him making cash for doing his hobby is, just positive. So that's coming up too. Unfortunately, I couldn't get all that stuff done for this one, but yeah, you gotta start somewhere. Um, but yeah, so we're trying to work on the video being pro, new music, some ideas for the podcast, some small tweaks. So we know the format is thought of the day, football, then guest, right? That's a normal format. Some other ideas that I have, and I need your guys' feedback because I think these could be awesome, but that's just in my head. So I need you to confirm in your head if you're like, oh yeah, that would be awesome. And so here's my few ideas that I have for the podcast. Um, the first one is a segment called If I Were President. So that would just be like picking something that I would tell you each podcast episode and just saying, hey, if I was president, this is the way it would be. And I'll just pick something that I think makes complete common sense, but it's not the current way. And then, you guys can vote me in the future. That's the first thing. I thought about another one where it'd be like, I don't want to say comedy because I'm definitely not a comedian, but I do like it. I love comedy. Um, and like I love Chris D'Elia's podcast. He makes me laugh my ass off. And so I feel like I can be funny a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. So since I can be a little bit funny, even if we just did one segment where I just made you giggle a little bit, that could be cool too. I think that's it for the new ideas. Yeah. So the summit. Let me give you a quick update on the summit. So for the summit, as you guys know, that was my idea to do like a year ago. Never happened. COVID kind of threw a wrench in stuff. The summit is going to happen. You have my word. When it's going to happen, excuse me, when it's going to happen, I'm not sure. So as you guys know, there's a lot of things that go into the summit. You have to recruit and vet 2 people that are qualified to do the summit. If they don't live in Colorado, you got to get them here, organize it, find a day, find a venue, have Dom do all the different stuff for recording it and microphone. It's a big operation. And so, good news, bad news. Good news is it's going to happen, especially with Dom's help. There's no doubt in my mind it's going to happen. The bad news is I'm not sure when. And so, my life is kind of busy right now with real estate, but it's a priority. And so, look out for that. I'll keep you guys updated for sure. But I still think the summit could be really impactful and a really cool opportunity for people. And so I will pursue that. Oh, the one other thing I was thinking about adding to the podcast, I think I did that a little bit in the past, was like a fantasy football just segment. And I could just talk about, like, hey, this week, if you're looking to pick up a quarterback, from waivers, whatever position, if you have an injury or a bye week, here's a list of guys I would recommend. And just go, and it wouldn't take long. I would just go through the list. So if you're looking and you can't really think of anybody, hey, just listen to TL's podcast. He gives you the list. Oh, I forgot about that guy. Yeah, let me go grab him. And so I thought about that too. So please give me your feedback on that. I don't care if you send me a direct message, text me, Facebook message me. I'm not really a huge fan of comments on YouTube videos, but if you want to do it that way, you can. So yeah, please give me feedback on that. Moving on to the last segment or last part of my life update before I let you go. There's 1, 2, Well, yeah, only two or three things left. So I told you about um, how controversial COVID was. So Donald Trump, his presidency was a, was an experience. So when people ask me what I think of Trump, first of all, I don't even like that they ask me, because if you're asking me what I think of Trump, you obviously have an opinion, probably a strong opinion, and how I answer could affect how you feel about me. That's not fair at all. So here's my answer for what I think of Donald Trump. I do not hate Donald Trump. I do not love Donald Trump. I think he's a man. I think he has his flaws and his weaknesses and his downfalls, like most men. Um, so I guess, long story short, I don't prescribe to having viral reactions to somebody. So somebody will say they hate him, he's despicable, yada yada yada, and they'll paint him as like this really big villain. And some people will say he's the Messiah, best thing that ever has happened to America. So my little common sense meter inside my brain says that most times in life, the middle is the answer. The middle is reality. Very, very rarely is the reality one side of the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like, rarely is it, yeah, he is all bad, or yeah, he is all good. Very often, it's in the middle. And what people don't want you to do when it comes to Trump is be in the middle. They want you to pick a side, red or red or blue, for or against, and you can either be a friend or an enemy based on your answer. So I say fuck all that. Um, I say no thanks to that whole concept of hating somebody or disliking somebody because they refuse to hate who you hate, I guess. Um, and it doesn't make sense to me. Uh, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on Trump. I'm not going to bore you with talking about his whole presidency and getting into details, but from a human perspective, just I'm a human talking about another human. Um, I don't ascribe to thinking that he's the worst thing ever or the best thing ever. And so if that upsets you, so be it. But that's where I'm at. Only two things left. So when I told you I'm taking better care of myself, there's this place called Orange Theory Fitness. You may have heard of it or driven by it, or maybe even worked out in it. I've driven by it lots of times. Never knew if it was just a gym or if it was, you know, structured differently. So I was walking out of this food place right next to Orange Theory Fitness, and I was like, let me stop in and ask him some questions. Doesn't wouldn't hurt, right? So I asked him kind of like what what the setup is, like what how their memberships work and stuff. So they explained to me that they have two memberships. One of them is 8 sessions per month, which is two per week. The other membership is unlimited. The first one costs $100. Second one costs $160. And basically, the structure of Orange Theory Fitness is you go in, you can either start on treadmills. There's like two groups: people that are on treadmills for about 25 minutes, and people that are doing the rowers and like floor work. You know what I mean? Whether it's like push-ups or planks, burpees, etc. So there's the rowers slash floor people and the treadmill people. So if you want to start on treadmill, you can. They ask you when you come in. Do you want to start? Where do you want to start? So you start where you start, and you have two groups that are doing separate things. Then halfway through, they all switch, right? So people that were on rowers and floor go to treadmill and vice versa. Long story short, it's about 50 minutes, almost an hour of nonstop, full body workout, like intense, in my opinion. I mean, I'm out of shape, so whatever. But 50 minutes of them just kicking your ass in different ways. No workout is the same. Well, granted, I've only been there for a month, but no workout, no workout's the same that I've seen so far. But they just do a great job of having you do different stuff. Like today, yeah, it was today. Today's workout was like the anti TL workout. Like I feel like that workout was made to kick my ass. Like it felt personal. Um, so that wasn't a good time, but I did it. So the thing is like if you're pushing too hard, one thing that's cool about Orange Theory is they have TVs that show everybody's name, and they have like it's hooked up to your arm, so it can like feel your pulse and stuff. So it not only tells you how many calories you're burning, but also tells you like what zone you're in. So if you're like in the hardest zone where your heart rate's like going crazy, it's red. It's the craziest one. The next down is orange. Then there's like green, I think, and then there's like blue and gray. So if you're in orange and red, those are called splat points. And so that's when you're burning the most fat and calories and stuff. And so a guy like me that's out of shape is like by far like burning the most calories and having the most splat points because I just started, which is cool to see, but also just shows me I have a lot of work to do. But for me, it's been highly effective. That's why I'm sharing it with you. The fact that I'm paying a certain amount of money per month for 8 classes, and I'm a structure guy, so like I like to like Tuesday and Thursdays are my days. So since I joined, I missed one Tuesday because of work, real estate, but every other Tuesday or Thursday I've been there religiously. And so it puts you on a schedule. You can use their app to tell you tell them when you're going to come in for a class. You come in whenever you want to come in. There's no doesn't matter. They don't care. But I always do 10:15 in the morning, Tuesday and Thursday, and it's been awesome for me. So if you're like me and you're not really a gym person and you're not a runner, it could be the answer. If you want to be in better shape, if you want somebody to manually kick your ass for an hour where you can't really leave and be lazy, I mean, I have to take breaks during the workout. And like if they tell me to like start jogging or push and I have to keep walking because my heart still like hasn't calmed down yet, then I just have to. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to pass out there or have a stroke or anything. So you kind of have to know your body and listen to it so you can not overdo it. But I've from 250s, I'm down to 240 now. I think I'll feel good when I'm in the 220s again. And so, you know, slowly but surely. But it's been good. And last but not least is the new house. So, in closing, I would say how do I say this without sounding pretentious? So, where I used to live in Colorado, that neighborhood. So, like, I had this car parked out, my car parked outside my house, and I hadn't driven it in a long time. It didn't even run, but it was parked out there because I only had a one car garage. And somebody stole the tires off of it at like 4 a.m. So that was one example of things that happened there. When I took Jackson, my dog, for a walk in that neighborhood, there's like several aggressive dogs that, like, if they got loose, it could be bad. You know what I mean? Like they could attack Jackson, kill Jackson, maybe injure me. I don't know. I don't know how big the dogs were, but that's a little bit unsettling when there's several of them just like in the path of you taking your dog for a walk. It's a combination of Jackson's safety and ghetto stuff happening. Um, yeah, it was time to go. But this new place, like I said, better neighborhood. Um, it's nicer. It's newer. The other place was built in '63. This was built in, I think, '96. So just less stuff to update. You know what I mean, and fix. And so, I'm a simple man, kind of, and me and Jackson are very happy here. He has less of a yard here, so I take him for more walks, which is good for both of us. And so we're just living the dream. But just simple stuff like I pay for HOA now, which isn't a great time, but I have access to a pool here, which is pretty cool. If you're from Ohio like me, pools are a big deal, and so that's a pretty cool perk. And also, just little things like when I'm taking Jackson for a walk, it's like a circle that I live in. Um, there's like these like in where people visitors can park. They'll have like a pole that has a trash can where you can throw like dog poop in, but then also there's the bags like fresh like new dog bags to pick up dog poop just for you to pull out. So imagine there's a trash can for you to throw your dog poop away while you're walking. So you don't have to carry it all the way back to your house. But then also there's another bag you can just pull out. So like just small stuff like that that nice neighborhoods have that didn't have before. And so now I'm just very thankful to have it. And so, long story short, life is good. It's great to see you guys. Hopefully, you enjoyed the podcast. Hopefully, it wasn't too boring talking about me and my life last year. But starting next week, my aim is to go back to my usual like one podcast per week every Friday release. Hopefully, I can do that. Hopefully, I'm not too busy with real estate. That's realistic. I'm definitely going to try. And so next Friday should be my first podcast with a guest, normal format. I'm going from there. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. So my last thing I'm going to leave you with is to like the video and subscribe. Let me tell you why before I let you go. First of all, if you like it, not only is it free, but it helps me out, right? So when you like a video, if it has a certain amount of likes, it's an algorithm and it gets seen more and it's just better for the person. Subscribing. The reason you should subscribe is because it's free. And if you like me, why would you not? Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a big ask, but can't force you to do anything. But yeah, like and subscribe if you don't mind. I appreciate you guys. I will talk to you soon. I'm going to be at the Browns game on Sunday, so maybe you can see me on TV. But go Browns, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.